tourists keep jumping into this highly dangerous lake. The ideal vacation spot usually includes a brilliant turquoise body of water, so picture perfect that you question how it can be real, which is exactly what's tucked away in Carballo, Spain. The vibrant attraction draws visitors from all over the globe, looking to snap the ultimate selfie by its jewel-toned shores. But those who have dared to dip their toes in the water or even wade in a bit deeper aren't walking away with the experience they'd like to remember. The Spanish city of Carballo is exactly where you want to visit during the summer. Just look at that shoreline, it stretches for miles, but if you venture off the beaten path, you can find something pretty extraordinary. Take a little hike through some rocky terrain that at first might seem like it's leading nowhere, but so long as you or a friend know where you're going, you come to this incredible oasis called m&rtv. You might feel like you're in a dream when walking around this lake. The color is unnaturally blue. Just looking at it calms you. This is why one Instagram influencer just had to visit. Her name is Sarah Gerpe, and she boasts over 35,000 social media followers. Her fans rely on her to snap awesome photos for their entertainment, and she knew m&rtv was the destination for her. On the yoga teacher's social media site, she states she's in love with the sea and the mountains and addicted to swimming and freediving. She visited, snapping a few choice photos. Soon, however, her followers online started to notice an interesting trend about her photos. She never actually went into the water. In fact, they realized that almost no one who took pictures there went swimming. The Instagram influencer, 32,000 followers, and self-proclaimed fashion designer Christian Lima knew m&rtv offered epic photos. That's why he showed up ready to pose in some classy swag, and even more popular Instagrammers make the venture. A Spanish fashion blogger named Iria, who flaunts nearly 50,000 followers, took a photo in April of 2018 that had fans swooning. One wrote, "I could so totally be there right now, but you've probably noticed no one's actually in the water." Well, that was until an Instagrammer who goes by the name Izzy and Ty visited m&rtv in July of 2019. He didn't hesitate to dive in head first. However, he learned a harsh lesson about the lake. Not long after his swim, he posted this to his social media account. His arm was red, inflamed, and extremely itchy. That wasn't the only area of his body affected either. He also developed blisters on his foot. Now, while he claimed there was no connection whatsoever between the water and his blistery rashes, people who know the history of m&rtv thought otherwise. Around the time of World War I, the area surrounding m&rtv served as a tungsten mine. The extraction of the metal was something even the Nazis were enthralled with. But what even is tungsten? It's an important metal referred to as a superalloy, often used to create wear-resistant coatings on steel, and it can also be used to create filaments inside light bulbs and cathode ray tubes. Tungsten's importance continued throughout World War II as well. The metal was a hot commodity for decades, until mining ceased in the 1980s and the area was abandoned. The dangerous tungsten, however, leaked into the lake after work stopped. This was exactly why very few people dared to take a dip when they visited. Sure, the area made for a phenomenal photo, but leave the bathing suits at home unless you want potentially dire health issues. If you do actually swim, one physician warns of eye problems and skin rashes, adding if you drink some water, you may also experience vomiting and diarrhea. These ailments caused outrage between the Spanish government and an environmental group named Plataforma. Knowing full well the dangers of the water, the government still advertised the location as a tourist destination, using a picture of a cross-legged woman gazing over the lake. Eventually, the environmental group had the ad dropped. As we know, Instagram influencers really don't care about danger when it comes to gaining more fans and those coveted likes. And despite the Spanish lake's proven dangers, many continue to flock there today, though messing around near toxic bodies of water is no laughing matter, the prime example being the tragedy of Lake Nyos. Ephraim Che was a farmer and a father of 4 who lived on the cliffs above Lake Nyos. At 9 p.m. on August 21, 1986, Ephraim was at home when he heard a rumbling noise outside. It sounded like there was a rock slide. There was also a white mist rising from the lake. Ephraim thought it was going to rain and went to bed for the night. The next morning, he walked to Lake Nyos, which was now a muddy red color instead of its normal clear blue, and besides that, the powerful waterfall was now dry. That's when he noticed how quiet the entire area was. Normally, the songbirds and insects filled the air with their whirring voices. All Ephraim could hear was the slight lapping of the water against the shore. He ran to Lower Nyos, a settlement close to the river, and stumbled into a horrific scene. Everyone was dead, all 1,000 of the residents, and that included Ephraim's parents, siblings, uncles, and aunts. On that day, there were no flies on the dead, the farmer said. That's because all of the flies were dead too. Besides Lower Nyos, another 800 people around the lake perished, bringing the final count to 1,800. It looked like everyone had died at 9 p.m., close to when Ephraim heard what he thought was a rock slide. Bodies were grouped in doorways, around fires, and in beds. Not everyone died from the mysterious incident, however. A few people eventually woke up, but later died by suicide when they saw their family members. Initially, no one was sure what happened to the villagers. Scientists were flown into Cameroon without knowing if they were in danger from a mysterious disaster that could potentially occur again without warning. The site, still being cleaned by the military, was a grim mess. The few survivors in Lower Nyos, even though they were grieving enormous losses, took these terrified scientists into their homes and showered them with kindness. They ate meals of corn mush around their cooking fires as a group. Can you imagine that? Geochemist Bill Evans asked, as he described their desperate situation. These people had just lost everything, and they were worried about us, Bill said. Amidst the meal sharing, researchers were testing Lake Nyos for a clue about the incident. Nyos translates to good in the local Men language, but to crush in Itengikom, a nearby dialect. That double meaning seemed morbidly ironic under the circumstances. That wasn't the only peculiar thing about the site. Lake Nyos is 682 feet deep and is a crater lake, a body of water that forms in craters after volcanic eruptions. Lake Nyos' crater, interestingly, is shaped like a carrot. Underneath the lake, there are rocks and ash remaining from the previous volcanic activity. These materials, it turns out, leave behind a poisonous substance. That would be carbon dioxide, which can also get into the water due to the magma flowing in the Earth's crust. Pressure from underwater springs pushes CO2 against the lower boundary of Lake Nyos. If Lake Nyos was further from the equator, this wouldn't really matter. Temperature changes mix the two water sources. There had to be something more going on. The deeper sections of Lake Nyos rarely mix with the shallower layers, leaving the body of water's contents to settle for thousands of years. When crater lakes remain like this, pressure continues to build at the bottom. It only needs some kind of trigger at this point. When some unknown factor releases all of the carbon dioxide from deep within the lake, it exploded to the surface, bringing iron-laced water with it. That was why the water was red the next morning. Scientists think a rock from one of the cliffs may have fallen into Lake Nyos, but there were other factors at play too. Some experts suggest that an odd temperature drop and strong winds were also potential causes. No matter the cause, the devastation was brutal. Waterspouts stripped plants off the surrounding landscape up to 262 feet above the lake. Researchers estimated that Lake Nyos released 1 billion cubic yards of carbon dioxide. The gas traveled across 2 valleys, threatening to claim even more victims. As the gas rolled downhill at 45 miles per hour, it covered Lower Nyos, Cha, Phang, Subum, and Mashi. In total, it traveled 14 miles, only sparing those who lived on high ground. The survivors weren't completely safe yet. There was still enough carbon dioxide in Lake Nyos to cause another wave of lethal mist. To relieve the pressure, a team of scientists installed a pipe that regularly pumps the carbon dioxide to the surface, keeping another massive explosion from happening. Once the pipe was installed, it shot a stream of water 148 feet into the air at 100 miles per hour. Then there were the more human issues to consider. With the lake becoming safer, some residents are returning to the area and trying to move on. "I no more think about the disaster," Halima Suli said. "I have more children. I'm thinking about the children I have now. The only problem is a lack of cattle to feed them and to pay for them to go to school. If I think about what I was, what the family was, I can go crazy, so I try not to. We are believers. Your children can survive you, or you can survive your children. It is all in the hands of God," Abdul Amadu, Halima's husband, said. Though he's feeling better, he's still worried about the lake itself. "What will happen when the geologists pack up and go home? When we feel their presence, we are much more peaceful because we think something is being done," Abdul said. "When they leave, we live in fear." Abdul worries because Lake Nyos isn't being degassed fast enough. Scientists estimate 4 more pipes need to be installed to keep up with the carbon dioxide. There are 5,500 tons of carbon dioxide still getting into the lake, meaning it would take one pipe 30 years to completely diffuse the danger. Additional pipes, on the other hand, would finish the job in about 5 years. So far, the project is waiting on funding. Meanwhile, the survivors are beginning to drift back into the Nyos region, even though they're still technically banned from living there due to the degassing situation. "You can't keep people out forever," Greg Tanilecki of Cameroon's Institute for Geological and Mining Research said. "We need to go faster. Disasters like the one at Lake Nyos may seem like they strike out of nowhere, but experts have identified some warning signs that could save countless lives." If you're ever walking along the ocean shore, especially somewhere that touches the Pacific Ocean, and see the water rapidly receding, a tsunami is likely on its way to your location. Underwater earthquakes are often the impetus for this natural disaster. If your hair pulls starts defying gravity and standing on end, you're in for a shocking surprise. This is a sign that you're in danger of being struck by lightning. Try to find shelter, or if you're in the open, crouch to make yourself a smaller target. Alongside storm clouds that signal an incoming thunderstorm, long wall clouds might also appear. Their presence means that the storm is in danger of creating a tornado. Watch wall clouds for circular movement, and find somewhere to take shelter if you see that. Rip currents are water channels that flow from the shoreline and can drag swimmers into the deep ocean. Illustrated via the green below. A gap between waves, choppy or discolored water, or debris streaming into the ocean are a sign that a rip current has appeared. Avoid them at all costs because rescue is a huge challenge. If you've ever watched any natural disaster movie, you'll know that when animals start fleeing an area, something is about to go down. Researchers say certain farm animals can feel the slight tremors, signaling a larger quake up to 20 hours ahead of major destruction. Skiing, snowmobiling, and snowboarding are only a few of the ways to enjoy a snowy mountain. When you're enjoying yourself on the slopes, however, watch out for cracked snow. This signals an approaching avalanche. These things can move at 80 miles per hour and easily cover a human. There's something unsettling about the sky turning green before an incoming thunderstorm. The green shade is created from the blue of the storm touching the red colors of a sunset. This phenomenon means that the storm that's rolling in will be severe. There's nothing like being on the beach and hearing the ocean switch from gentle waves to a roaring train. This loud sound will be accompanied by a wall of water, a tsunami. Avoid your urge to record this weird noise and get to high ground. Flash floods are powerful disasters that can upend trees and tear through buildings. If you're hiking near a flowing river and hear extra loud flowing water, a flash flood is on the way. Not so fun fact, floods are the second deadliest natural disaster in the US, so find the high ground fast. Cirrus clouds are comprised of light-reflecting ice shards that create a visible ring around the sun or moon. These thin clouds often appear before a storm, so seeing these beautiful halos might mean there's stormy weather approaching. Golden-winged warblers are a bird species that are apparently very sensitive to tornadoes. Researchers noticed a group of these birds flew from the Tennessee to Florida when they sensed the low-frequency infrasound coming from the tornadic storm. If the beach is filled with rotting fish, you should probably avoid the water. Dead sea creatures can be a sign of a red tide, when the ocean is extra full of toxic algae. Swimming in water like this can irritate your lungs and throat, though rinsing off in fresh water could alleviate your symptoms. One sign of a landslide is a group of trees bent into J shapes. This means the soil in the area is slowly moving and changing the way trees grow. The area will be extremely unstable and will be the site of a future landslide. There's another movie-related example. Remember in Bambi when all of the forest creatures were running as the woods burned? This happens in real life too, so if you see animals running away from a certain direction, you better follow them. Something that can accompany heavy rain is a flood. If the water level is rising and a muddy color, a flood is imminent. The brown shade originates from the rapidly streaming water eroding the shoreline. Floods are surprisingly powerful and can easily sweep away large objects like trees or cars. The unusual indication that a hurricane is coming is shark behavior. These predators normally swim higher in the ocean, but dive to lower depths if there's the potential for a major storm. Scientists believe they can sense a change in barometric pressure. Here's a specific tip. In a hot climate, lakes in close proximity to a volcano are trouble. These can sometimes have magma flowing underneath and forcing carbon dioxide into the bottom of the lake. The hot weather keeps the water stagnant, allowing this pressure to build until it explodes in a limnic eruption. When two wave systems flow against each other, they create a cross sea. The square pattern is stunning and also dangerous. Strong currents accompany this disruption, and in the past, cross seas have wrecked ships that strayed into their path. There are some caves that are only accessible at low tide. While you're exploring these spaces, be mindful that all tides rise again, especially during a full or new moon. They can rise higher than normal because the Earth, Sun, and Moon are aligned, which pulls more on the water.